The law of attraction doesn't work for the weak, and yes, you've been lied to. You've repeated affirmations, you've visualized, you've raised your vibration, burnt sage-whispered mantras under your breath, and waited for the universe to answer. And yet, nothing truly changed. Because here's the secret no one wants to tell you. Reality does not obey your wishes, it mirrors your subconscious permission. And most of what lives inside you is not desire, but contradiction. You say you want freedom, but you're addicted to control. You say you want love, but fear being seen. You say you want truth, but you're still flirting with comfort. This is not a self-help book. This is a self-exorcism, a metaphysical confrontation. I'm not here to teach you how to be more spiritual. I'm here to help you remember that you are the damn source and you've forgotten. The modern metaphysical world has become a glittering distraction. Manifestation journals with golden letters. Instagram shamans selling love in 5 steps. Quotes that sound like truth but die at the first sign of suffering. Meanwhile, your soul is screaming. Not for beauty, not for ease, but for something real. Let me tell you what's real. Reality is not something you experience. It's something you emit. You are not walking through life. You are projecting it. And until you look at the projector, your own mind, you will keep editing the movie scene by scene, never realizing the real is inside. This book will not make you comfortable. It will not flatter your ego. It will not teach you how to fix your life. Because your life was never broken. It was just encoded with beliefs you didn't choose, identities you inherited, and wounds you refused to name. What you call fate is a loop. What you call God is consciousness reflected through your own permission. What you call truth is usually your most sophisticated lie. I have written this because you are ready. Not to learn something new, but to remember what you've hidden. You are not seeking truth. Truth is seeking you. And it will not find you in comfort. You will react to this book. You should. Because only the false self is offended. The real you is not afraid of being shattered. It's afraid of being seen. So let's begin with the shattering. Let's begin with the part no one dares to say out loud. You've been creating your own prison. And only you can set yourself on fire. Burn the old maps. Rip the pages you underlined. Forget the names of your teachers. This is not about learning. This is about unbinding, unconditioning, uncreating the illusion. This is metaphysics with teeth. And if you're brave enough to continue, you'll never be the same again. Chapter 1. The mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't speak. You broke every mirror in your house. Every one. The hallway mirror that made you feel too much. The bathroom mirror that stared too long. The little one in your bag that whispered doubt. Even the one you inherited, the antique mirror with the silver frame, and a crack like a scar down the middle. You shattered it too. But the reflection never died, because it was never in the glass. It was in you. And here's the first truth I won't sugarcoat. What you call reality is not what's happening. It's what you're refusing to see in yourself, finding a new way to scream at you. Pain is not some monster stalking you from outside. It's the echo of an unloved part of you yelling louder each time you ignore it. And healing is not the soft lullaby they sold you. It's not a rose quartz bath, or a morning affirmation, or the gentle hum of a Tibetan bowl. Healing is violence. A necessary one. The violence of seeing yourself unedited. The violence of no longer explaining why they hurt you, and starting to ask why you stayed. You see, the mirror doesn't lie. But it also doesn't speak. You do. And the words you use, the judgments, the stories, the labels, they don't describe others. They describe your wounds. Every time you said, "She's so manipulative," you were hiding the part of you that manipulates with silence. Every time you whispered, "He's so selfish," you were projecting the part of you that gives to be needed not to be true. This is not pretty work. It is not romantic. It is not for the spiritual hobbyist who wants enlightenment without blood. This is where you sit down and shut up. Not because you're small, but because the self that's been speaking has never let you see what's underneath. Let's get brutally honest. You're not stuck because the world is unfair. You're stuck because part of you needs to believe the world is unfair. So you never have to look at your own betrayal of self. The mirror showed you your jealousy. So you said she's too much. The mirror showed you your shame. So you said he thinks he's better than me. The mirror showed you your fear. So you said they're dangerous. You don't need a new life. You need new eyes. And not the eyes that blink, the ones that burn. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man, not different from you, not wiser, not more broken. He lived in a house filled with mirrors. Every room, every corner. Not just on the walls, on the ceilings, on the floors, in the spaces between his thoughts. At first, it felt like enlightenment. I am self-aware, he thought. I can see myself from all angles. But over time, the mirrors began to lie. Or so he believed. They made him look too angry, too old, too scared, too not what he wanted to be. So, one by one, he smashed them. With fists, with hammers, with tears. Until only one remained. A small mirror. Not on the wall, but inside his chest. He'd carried it all along. And when he finally looked into it, he didn't see his face. He saw everyone he had ever blamed. His father, his lovers, his enemies, his gods, all staring back at him with his eyes. If that doesn't make you tremble, you're still asleep. Because here's the part no one tells you. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're at war with, what you've buried, what you've refused to claim. And until you look it in the eye, it will wear every face around you. Your partner, your boss, your mother, your enemy. The mirror is everywhere, because your soul is trying to get your attention. And if it has to use suffering, it will. This is the chapter you'll want to skip, the one that doesn't give you tools, or hope, or even comfort. It gives you a choice. Look, really look at what you judge in others, or stay a victim of your own projection. This is not about forgiveness. Not yet. This is about recognition. That the monster you fear may not be under the bed, but in the mirror you've avoided. Take a breath. No, not that shallow breath you've been surviving on. A real one. Down into your gut. Down into the ache. Into the place where you still carry the memory of who you had to be to survive. Now ask yourself, what do I hate in others? Let the answer come. Let it be ugly. Don't purify it. Don't clean it for Instagram. Name it. Liar. Narcissist. Coward. Manipulator. Victim. Write them down. 5 of them. Don't justify. Don't spiritualize. Just witness. And now, ask the question that might split your chest open. What part of me does this name that I haven't loved yet? And sit in silence. Not for answers, but for the scream that's been trying to come home. You think the pain will go away when the world changes, when they apologize, when the job comes, when the lover stays, when the money finally flows. But the mirror doesn't care about your timelines. The mirror doesn't care about your list. The mirror only waits for one thing: that you stop pretending you're not the one casting the reflection. You've spent your life managing images, trying to become the version of yourself you think the world will accept. But in the process, you killed the one thing that could have saved you: your rawness, your rage, your revolt, the parts you were told to hide, the feelings you learned to filter, the truths you buried so deep they now show up as diseases, as heartbreaks, as lessons. But life is not your teacher. It's your mirror. And it's not here to grade you. It's here to reveal you. Let's speak plainly. You've been spiritualizing avoidance, calling your detachment peace, calling your silence wisdom, calling your boundaries healing. But if your boundary is built on a refusal to feel, it's not a boundary. It's a wall around your heart, painted with the words self-love in glitter. You do not grow by closing the door on your reflection. You grow by shattering the illusion that the reflection was ever someone else. I want you to remember a moment when someone triggered you so deeply you couldn't even speak. not because they hurt you, but because they mirrored you, and your ego couldn't bear it. Their arrogance, your own suppressed hunger to be seen, their coldness, your own disowned anger, sharpened into numbness, their chaos, your own buried wildness, screaming to dance, to destroy, to create. You called them toxic. But what if they were the reflection of the part of you that you silenced to stay good? What if the most annoying people in your life are just the most honest reflections of who you have yet to integrate? This is not a philosophy. This is a dismantling. You're not here to get better. You're here to get whole. And wholeness doesn't feel like a sunrise. It feels like a demolition. It's the cracking of the floor beneath your self-image. It's the sob that doesn't have a reason. It's the collapse that finally shows you what you've been building on a lie. Look around you. The people who activate you the most, they are your sacred invitations, not because they're right, not because they're kind, but because your soul wrote them into the script so you would finally turn around and see the wound you've been decorating with affirmations. No one can trigger you unless they touch a part of you that you've refused to love. This doesn't mean their behavior is excused. It means your reaction is encrypted. Decrypt it. What are they touching that you haven't made peace with? Why is your body screaming when they enter the room? It's not them. It's the part of you that still believes their behavior controls your worth. But no one can make you feel unworthy unless you've already agreed. Let's talk about that. Your agreements. You've made unconscious vows. I will never be like them. I will always be strong. I will never let anyone see me weak. I will not show need. These vows were your survival. But now they are your cage. And the mirror is trying to break them. Not with logic, but with life. By showing you exactly what you swore you'd never become. In the form of people who make your skin crawl, your throat close, your fists clench. You don't hate them. You hate the part of you that resembles them. The unintegrated shadow. And the mirror is mercy. Because it's bringing the shadow closer. Every time you look away, you were not born to be polished. You were born to be whole. And wholeness means letting every ugly, brutal, contradictory piece have its seat at your table. Stop trying to fix the reflection. Start trying to receive it. That's the beginning of actual healing. Not comfort. Not sweetness. But confrontation. Because the soul doesn't evolve through ease. It evolves through honesty. And honesty at this level is painful. Which is why most people stop here. They say, "That's just how I am." They're just too negative. It's not worth my energy. And they walk away from the mirror. Again. 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 Until life turns up the volume. until the same pattern becomes a crisis, and by then, the wound is bleeding through relationships, through careers, through silence. But it didn't have to be that way. It still doesn't. You can turn toward it now, while it's whispering, before it screams. Sit with this, not as a student, not as someone collecting insights, but as someone who's tired of living in echoes. You've spent years reacting to the same frequencies, different faces, different places, but the same emotion, chasing you down like a predator in the dark. And you called it bad luck. You called it karmic lessons. You called it them. But maybe, just maybe, it's you. Not in the way that blames, but in the way that frees. Because when you finally admit that you are the one projecting the film, you stop being the character. You become the director. But that shift, it requires death. The death of your justifications. The death of your narratives. The death of your fragile identity that needs someone else to be the villain. Are you ready for that kind of death? Because if not, you're not ready for liberation. Let's descend deeper. Let's ask the question you've avoided. Who have you secretly become in order to avoid becoming them? Them. The ones who hurt you. The ones you swore you'd never be. The ones your inner child still flinches at. You crafted your whole personality as the opposite of their reflection, but never asked if the rejection made you any more real. If you become the opposite of a lie, you're still a reaction, not a truth. So what if the healing isn't in becoming different? What if it's in becoming honest? Honest enough to say, I hated that person because I saw myself in them. Honest enough to say, I'm terrified of being like them, but I already am. Not in action, but in essence. The essence that was never met, never loved, never given the dignity of wholeness. This is what I mean when I say healing isn't soft. It is standing naked before the altar of your projections and offering up every mask you've ever worn, just to feel safe. Do you understand now? Safety is the most seductive lie. It convinces you to compartmentalize, to avoid, to label people as toxic instead of facing the toxin already flowing through your own bloodstream. But don't be ashamed. Shame is a stall tactic of the ego. It says, don't look, you're not ready. It says this makes you unworthy. No, this makes you real. Your hatred, real. Your judgments, real. Your triggers, real. Not because they define you, but because they expose you. And what they expose is the doorway out of illusion. Let's pause, but not to rest. To enter. To walk barefoot into the mirror you've spent your life polishing for others. I want you to breathe. Deeper than usual. Inhale. Let it fill your gut, not your chest. Let it disturb something. Exhale. And don't control it. Let the breath leave like a secret, no longer willing to stay hidden. Now, think of the last person who made your blood boil. The one whose presence felt like poison. Name them in your mind. Then name what they activated. Control. Abandonment. Rejection. Disrespect. Let it rise. Now go deeper. What part of you did that touch? Not the adult you. The child. The one who cried quietly in the corner so no one would punish them. The one who made a vow to never be weak, to never need, to never trust. Can you see the mirror now? Can you see that person as a reflection, not a threat? And can you, for just one moment, turn your rage into recognition? This isn't forgiveness. This isn't reconciliation. This is reclamation. Because the moment you realize they were a mirror, you get your power back. Not because you rise above, but because you fall inward, into the grief, into the wound, into the part of you that has never been witnessed, but has orchestrated your entire life from the shadows. That's who you meet in the mirror, not them. You, and not the you that performs. The you that aches. The you that doesn't want to be healed, but seen. Write this down. Yes, now. Take a page. Write it by hand. Let it be raw. 5 traits you hate in others. Not dislike. Hate. The ones you would erase from the human race if you could. The ones that make you feel morally superior. The ones that disgust you. And once you have them, ask without flinching, where does this live inside me? Hidden, distorted, disowned. Not to blame yourself. To meet yourself. Because until you do, your life will keep calling those traits into form. Through coworkers, through lovers, through so-called enemies. And the more you resist them, the more they come closer. Because the mirror doesn't punish. It reflects. And it reflects until you see. You say you want freedom. Then prove it. Not by running. Not by performing. But by standing still, facing the image, and whispering, I see you, and I know you are me, and I no longer need to be at war. That is when the mirror changes. Not because it lied before, but because you finally did not. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be transparent, not so that others could see through you, but so that you could finally see through yourself. But transparency requires death. Death of illusion. Death of performance. Death of the masks you forgot were masks. The truth is, you've been negotiating with your own reflection, trying to convince it to show something prettier, softer, less monstrous. But the mirror is indifferent to your edits. It only shows what is. Unfiltered. Unforgiving. Unnecessary to explain. And that's where liberation begins. You've tried to outgrow your shadows. To out-pray them. Out-meditate them. Out-mature them. But shadows don't dissolve by elevation. They dissolve by integration. This means you don't escape what you hate in others. You own it. You hold it to your chest, like a child that was never told. You are still loved, even when you manipulate, even when you judge, even when you lie, because wholeness is not the reward for being holy. It is the consequence of being honest. Let's go deeper. You see, the mirror doesn't reflect your face. It reflects your fractures. And every judgment you place on someone else is a tourniquet around the part of you that still believes it is unworthy. So you judge them for being loud, because your own voice was punished. You judge them for being soft, because you had to become hard. You judge them for taking up space, because you've lived your life shrinking to survive. And until that fracture is felt, not fixed, you will keep seeing versions of it, until your nervous system explodes from the repetition. You don't need protection from the world. You need intimacy with your wound. And intimacy is not comfort. It's confrontation. Here is where I offer you nothing but silence. Not a solution. Not a promise. Just a pause. A sacred interruption. Not to run away, but to sit down for real, with the question that burns in the center of your triggers. What in me has not yet been allowed to exist? Let that question take root in you. Let it echo. Let it haunt. Because what has not been allowed will always find its way back into your life, wearing the costume of a problem. But it was never a problem. It was a prophecy. The prophecy of your return. Let me tell you what they don't teach in spiritual circles. You don't become whole by only loving your light. You become whole when you stop demanding your shadow to behave. When you let your rage sit at the dinner table, without trying to purify it. When you let your grief scream, without editing its volume. When you let your jealousy burn, without drowning it in guilt. That is not regression. That is integration. That is how the mirror begins to soften, not by changing the reflection, but by changing your response to it. From avoidance to intimacy. From judgment to curiosity. From fear to witnessing. You can't manipulate the mirror anymore. You've tried. Through image. Through knowledge. Through spiritual performance. But the mirror doesn't care if you can quote Rumi. The mirror doesn't flinch when you chant in Sanskrit. The mirror doesn't shift because you know better. It waits until you feel deeper. Until you're willing to undress every layer you put on to not feel shame. Until you're willing to say, yes, I am that too. Yes, that lives in me too. Yes, I see myself now, and I don't look away. The world will not heal until its people stop outsourcing their demons. And you are not here to be safe. You are here to be sacred. And sacredness demands exposure. This is the spiritual path no one posts about. The one without candles, without feathers, without filters. Just you and the mirror, and the brutal, breathtaking miracle of seeing everything you've judged as something that longs to be loved, not excused, not allowed to run wild, but simply acknowledged. Because once something is seen in truth, it loses its need to control. And that is how you begin to reclaim yourself from the grip of projection. Let's come back, not to end, but to arrive. Arrive at the place inside you that is no longer afraid of being seen, because it has seen itself. Let's repeat the ritual. 5 traits you despise in others. Write them down. Yes, again, even if you already did it. Because now, you're not writing from reaction. You're writing from recognition. Now, ask, what part of me have I left unloved because I didn't want to be like them? Sit with it. Cry if you must. Shake if you must. But don't run. Because if you stay, even just one breath longer than you usually do, you will hear something. Not a voice. Not a solution. A sound. The sound of the mirror cracking. Not from violence, but from truth. The kind that does not need to be spoken. Because it already lives in your bones. Somewhere along the way you forgot that the image in the mirror was never your enemy. It was your echo. And echoes only exist when there's something hollow. A cavern. A wound that hasn't been filled, only avoided. But now, you're here. In the middle of this silence. In the middle of this reckoning. And the echo is asking softly, will you stop fighting what's trying to return home through your reflection? You've been told to rise above, to let it go, to forgive. But if you forgive before you witness, you bypass the very wound that shaped you. You think forgiveness is freedom. Sometimes it is. But sometimes it's a costume. A way to spiritually escape the pain of really looking. You do not owe the world a performance of healing. You owe yourself the truth of where you actually are. And maybe where you are is rage, is jealousy, is bitterness, is fear. Not because you are broken, but because something within you hasn't been met. Not truly. Not fully. So the mirror keeps calling for your attention through the people you want to push away. They are not here to test you. They are here to reflect what you have not claimed. Listen carefully. The shadow you refuse to own will always find someone else to wear it for you. You'll meet them at the worst time. They'll say the thing you were never allowed to say. they'll do the thing you were never allowed to do. And you'll hate them for it. But if you're honest, beneath the hatred is envy, not of their actions, but of their freedom. They dared to be what you suppressed, and the mirror revealed your longing. You don't want to be like them. You want to be free of the cage that made them unbearable. So stop trying to fix them. Fix the agreement within you that said you're not allowed to be that honest, that messy, that loud, that unapologetic. This is the turning point. You can go back, rebuild the mirrors, polish them again, return to the illusion. Or you can sit in the wreckage, the shards, the cuts, the nakedness, and begin. Not begin the journey of becoming, but the journey of unbecoming who you had to be in a world terrified of your wholeness. I'll say this plainly. Healing that doesn't include shadow is not healing. It's image control. And most people don't want healing. They want to feel good. But feeling good without truth is anesthesia. And anesthesia is not freedom. Freedom is feeling everything, seeing everything, meeting every part of you without flinching, especially the parts you've outsourced into the bodies of people you hate. Ask yourself again, what have I been trying to destroy in others that I'm still ashamed of in myself? Write it, whisper it, weep it, dance it, breathe it. Just stop denying it. Because what you deny, you feed. And what you feed, you eventually become, but in the shadows, in distortion, in secrecy. The only way to stop being run by what you reject is to stop rejecting it. That is the revolution. That is the return. Let me remind you of something ancient. Before you were broken, you were everything. Before the trauma, before the punishment, before the silence, you were whole. And not in a poetic sense. In a literal sense. You were not split into light and dark. You were all. Untamed, unedited, unapologetically divine. Then the world came. The mirrors were hung. And suddenly you were taught to filter. To be good. To be nice. To be safe. And what didn't fit the image was labeled wrong. But wrong is just a word. A spell. Cast by those who were afraid of their own reflections. You don't have to keep living under that spell. You're allowed to hold contradiction. To be both soft and savage. To be kind and terrifying. To be light and dark at once. Your soul is not linear. It is a spiral. And in that spiral, every part has a voice. The mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't speak. You do. So the only question now is, What truth in me is finally ready to be said aloud. Not for applause, not for redemption, but because your reflection can no longer hold it in. We're almost there, but not quite. This final stretch, it asks something sacred of you. It asks you to stop asking for clarity and start asking for capacity. Not, what does this mean? But can I hold what this reveals? Can you hold that the people you hate might be the exact initiators your soul chose? Can you hold that your resistance to them is your resistance to a buried self? Can you hold the paradox that no one is your enemy, only your echo? Breathe again, not because it's time to rest, but because it's time to rise. Rise as the one who no longer needs to hide behind they. Rise as the one who no longer needs to explain, escape, or externalize. Rise as the one who sees the mirror, sees the wound, and says without shame, I remember you, and I will not look away again. This is where most books would wrap up with a lesson, a golden phrase, a neat takeaway, something tweetable, something sweet. But you didn't come here for sweet. You came for truth. And truth doesn't tuck you in, it turns you inside out. So I won't give you closure, because if you still need closure, you haven't fully looked into the mirror. I will give you something else, a beginning. Not the kind where you change your morning routine, or write a new affirmation on your mirror. No. The kind of beginning that splits your chest open, because you finally realize you've never lived a day without seeing the world through a wound you refuse to name. Let that sink in. You've never had a neutral thought. Not once. Every opinion, every reaction, every assumption, filtered through the lens of what you haven't yet healed. And that lens is the mirror. So, when you said, they're too loud, what you meant was, I'm afraid to be heard. When you said, they always take up too much space, what you meant was, I don't know how to believe I deserve to exist without apologizing. When you said, they're full of themselves, what you meant was, I've been starving for a sense of self, but was punished every time I reached for it. You see it now, don't you? You've never been looking at them. You've been looking into yourself. But because it hurt too much, you blamed the mirror. The mirror didn't lie. It never does. But it also didn't speak. It waited. For this moment, right here, where your soul is ready to hear what your mind couldn't bear. So here is your ritual. Not an exercise, not a task, a reclamation, ritual of reflection. 1. Find a mirror, a real one that shows you your entire face, not just your skin, but your story. 2. Sit with it. Light a candle if you must, or sit in the dark. Both reveal what light cannot. 3. Take a pen and a page. At the top, write this sentence: "What I most hate in others may be what I've most rejected in myself." 4. Then write 5 traits. Not shallow ones. Not polite ones. The ones that shame you to admit. Write them raw, furious, unedited. 5. For each one, ask aloud, yes, aloud. Where does this live in me? When did I start hiding this? Who told me this made me unlovable? 6. And then, do nothing. Don't fix it. Don't spiritualize it. Don't post about it. Just sit there, with every mask on the floor, and the mirror watching you. Not as judge, not as punisher, but as witness. This is how it begins. This is how you return. Not by becoming better, but by becoming real. Because the most radical act in a world obsessed with image is to see yourself fully and stay. So when someone triggers you tomorrow, when the reflection comes back sharper, brighter, closer, don't look away. Don't react. Instead, breathe. And remember, this too is me. This too is a call. This too is the mirror. And say it gently. Say it without shame. Say it like a vow. I will no longer make my reflection my enemy. That is the beginning of everything. Not the end of the wound, but the end of the war with it. And when the war ends, something ancient returns. Not peace, not joy, but something far more dangerous. Power. The kind of power that can finally look into the mirror and no longer ask it to change, because the one looking has already remembered who they are. Chapter 2. Desire is a mask, not a map. You think you know what you want. But what if I told you? Desire is not your truth. It's your trauma dressed in ambition. What if everything you've been chasing was never yours to begin with? The life, the relationship, the body, the freedom. What if none of it was soul-designed, but lack-designed? A costume stitched together from what you think will finally make you enough. You were not born wanting fame. You were not born needing validation. You were not born chasing purpose. You were born whole. And desire didn't lead you, it found you. The moment you were told that who you were wasn't enough. And from that moment forward, you began collecting maps. Not your own. Maps handed down. Maps borrowed from books, gurus, lovers, parents. Maps that promised arrival, but only ever delivered you deeper into a maze of mirrors. So let's not romanticize desire. Let's expose it. Because the spiritual world has turned desire into a golden god. You must align with your desires. you must manifest them. You must follow what lights you up. But no one stops to ask, what if what lights you up is your wound on fire? What if your dream life is just the adult version of a child begging to be seen? Desire is not always sacred. Sometimes it's a mask, a beautifully decorated lie, to hide the ache underneath. And here is where I offer you nothing but confrontation. Because your desire to be desired, is it love or is it survival? Your desire to be wealthy, is it abundance? Or is it the revenge fantasy of someone who once had nothing? Your desire to be free, is it sovereignty? Or is it just escape? You see, you don't attract what you say you want. You attract what you believe you're worthy of. And most of your worthiness has been outsourced to numbers, to metrics, to whether someone texted you back, to whether the algorithm smiled today. You've mistaken desire for destiny. But destiny doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't starve. Only the part of you that was never chosen does. Let me tell you a story. There once was a man who found a map in the attic. Old, worn, lined with stars and golden ink. It said treasure lies here. So he followed it. Through rivers, through mountains, through years of sacrifice. He lost friends. He bled. He gave up everything for this treasure. And when he reached the spot marked by an X, he dug and dug and found a mirror. Just a mirror. And as he looked into it, he realized this map wasn't for him. It was someone else's desire, someone else's dream, someone else's need. And he had followed it so well that he forgot he ever had his own. So now I ask you, whose map are you following? Whose treasure are you trying to uncover? Who told you that desire makes you divine? Because the soul doesn't desire, it remembers. And what it remembers doesn't come with craving. It comes with clarity. And craving is not clarity. It's addiction. Addiction to the fantasy that something out there will make you whole in here. Let's pause. Strip it all away. No dreams. No goals. No vision boards. No mission statements. Just this. Who are you if you don't get what you want? Not who do you pretend to be. Not who do you perform to be. Not who are you trying to become. Who are you without the chase? What's left? When the wanting ends, can you even recognize yourself without your pursuit? Because most people don't know who they are outside of what they're chasing. I'll say it again. Desire is not a map. It's a mask. And the more desperate the desire, the deeper the mask. You want love, but can you sit alone without begging silence to be brief? You want purpose, But can you exist without proving your value every second? You want success, but would you still show up if no one clapped? Desire isn't evil, but it is not always honest. And if you're not willing to question its roots, you'll build your life on soil that isn't even yours. Take a breath, not to relax, to wake up. Let the breath drop low into the belly, into the part of you that still holds onto the memory of being told you must earn it. Now ask, what if nothing I desire is actually mine? Feel that. Not as fear, as liberation. You're not here to chase. You're here to clear. Clear the programs. Clear the mimicry. Clear the ambition that smells like perfume but tastes like scarcity. And now the mirror returns. But this time it doesn't show your face. It shows the version of you who no longer desires to be anything but whole, not admired, not chosen, not celebrated, just whole. Can you see that version of you? Can you feel how still they are? How quiet their presence? How unseduced they are by the shiny promises of success, romance, recognition. That is the version of you who doesn't chase because they already are. Now comes the ritual. Not a step-by-step, not a manifestation list. A reckoning. Take out a page. Draw a line down the middle. On one side, write what I think I want, and list it. All of it. Money, love, impact, whatever the words are. Then, cross out 3 of them. Just 3. And under each one, write, who am I if I no longer need this? Let the answer come raw. Let it disturb. Let it reveal the mask you've been wearing. Because in the space where desire dies, truth is born. I'm not here to tell you not to want. I'm here to tell you that you don't need what your ego claims. That the soul already knows. And it's quieter than craving. You won't find your path by wanting harder. You'll find it by shedding what you never truly wanted to begin with. And when that shedding happens, when the wanting falls away, you will find something terrifying and beautiful. A version of you who is already enough without any of it. This is not the end of desire, but it is the beginning of discernment. Let the old dreams die. Let the hand-me-down goals crumble. And ask, finally, fully, what is left when I stop needing anything? The answer won't shout. It will whisper, but it will be yours. And that, not desire, is your direction. Chapter 3. Time is the lie that keeps you small. Time is not moving. You are. Let that land. You are not being carried forward by time like a leaf in the river. You are shifting breath by breath between versions of yourself. Between worlds that look the same, but are not. The calendar is not your God. The clock is not your spine. The timeline you believe in is a cage wrapped in logic. They taught you that time was linear, a straight arrow. Birth, school, career, retirement, death. But you're not on a timeline. You're in a maze. And the only reason you feel stuck is because the part of you still clinging to what should be by now won't let you step into what already is. Let me say something hard. Time is not real. It's emotional control disguised as progress. It tells you when to feel ready, when to mourn, when to let go, when to bloom. But your soul doesn't follow a schedule. It follows permission. And most of you are still waiting to give yourselves the permission to begin. You say, "Now's not the right time. I'm still healing. I'm almost there." But those are just prettier ways of saying, "I'm afraid. I'm still performing safety. I haven't yet forgiven myself for being late to my own life." Let me tell you a story. A man ran every day. He was on a moving walkway. You know, like the ones at airports. But this one moved backward. So to make progress, he had to run faster, and faster, and faster. He ran for years, panting, sweating, bleeding, thinking he was getting somewhere. Because the signs changed. First student, then professional, then leader, then parent, then mentor. But one day, he stopped running and noticed there was a button right by his feet, unlabeled, unlit, uninviting. But when he stepped off the walkway and pressed it, the walkway stopped. The signs disappeared, and in the silence that followed, he heard something for the first time. His own voice. Not the voice trained to respond. Not the voice groomed for approval. But the voice that never chased. The voice that never waited. You've been running. Not toward something. Away from the terror. That maybe, just maybe, you're already there. And if you're already there, then what? Then you'd have to feel. You'd have to let the stillness confront you. You'd have to admit that time didn't betray you. You did. You've made time your excuse. I need more time. I'm too old. It's too soon. But those words are weapons. Weapons used by the ego to delay truth. Weapons that keep you small by convincing you that more of the same will lead you somewhere different. Let me say something most people won't. You don't need more time. You need more presence. And presence isn't something you earn. It's something you allow. Right now. Not when the bills are paid. Not when you're less anxious. Not when the moon is full and the incense is lit. Now. But your addiction to one day is keeping you from this day. And your loyalty to the timeline is blinding you to the portal, because every moment is a potential leap into a new version of you. Not because the date has changed, but because you finally stopped waiting. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about what time really does. Time gives you the illusion of safety, the illusion of sequence, the illusion that you're doing okay, because things are on track. But whose track? Who decided the right age to bloom, to break, to rebuild? And why are you measuring your soul with the ruler of a society built on control? You've been taught to wait. Wait until it's safe. Wait until you're ready. Wait until it makes sense. But sense is just code for social compliance. And readiness is a myth used by the scared parts of you to keep you from entering the fire where your old life burns. Take a breath, not to calm down, to step out. Step out of the fake race you've been told you're running. Breathe like time is irrelevant, because it is. The only thing real is how much of you is here, right now. What if you're not late? What if nothing is delayed? What if the only divine timing is the moment you stop outsourcing your freedom to a future you keep postponing? You've spent years preparing. For what? For a life that will always be just around the corner, or for a self that never stopped knocking at the door. So here's the paradox. When you stop believing in time, you finally enter timelessness. And in timelessness, transformation is not a process. It's a choice, made now. Not when, not later, now. Let's pause. Let's get uncomfortably honest. What is the thing you've been putting off? For 5 years? What have you said? Not yet. I'm not ready. I need more healing. What dream? What truth? What leap? Write it down. Name it. Then ask yourself, not as a child, not as a victim of the calendar, but as the sovereign you. What am I protecting by waiting? And let the answer come like a blade. Because often what you're protecting is the fragile identity that only exists in the waiting. If you stop waiting, you lose your excuse. And if you lose your excuse, you meet your power. That's the cost. The cost of awakening is the death of your favorite delay. Here's the ritual. Write down one thing you've been waiting for the right time to do for 5 years. Just one. Write it. Now commit. I will do this within 24 hours. Not because it's convenient, not because it's perfect, but because you are done being the prisoner of your own postponement. And once you do it, even imperfectly, you will feel it. Time never had power over you. You were the one holding the leash. This is the truth. You don't need time to change. you need permission. And that permission will never come from the stars. It will come from the stillest part of you, the part that knows you are already walking in the future you used to beg for. If only you'd stop running long enough to notice. Chapter 4. Emotion builds the architecture of reality. You think you've been building your life with thoughts, with plans, with vision boards, with affirmations. But your reality was never built by your mind. It was built by your emotions, the ones you felt, and especially the ones you refuse to feel. Every city has its architects. So does your life. And those architects are the suppressed screams of your soul. Let's start with the wound no one dares to name. Unfelt emotion doesn't disappear. It metastasizes. It becomes reality. You didn't manifest betrayal. You suppressed grief so long it had to return as someone else's abandonment. You didn't attract failure. You silenced your rage for so many years that your own life started collapsing to get your attention. This isn't punishment. This is physics. The inner world must be expressed. And if not through expression, then through experience. You see, reality is not random. It is symbolic. And emotion is its ink. The more you deny what you feel, the louder life screams on your behalf. But here's the tragedy. You keep blaming the scream instead of listening to the message. You've been told to regulate your emotions, to control them, to breathe through them, to not let them define you. But what if I told you emotions don't come to be solved? They come to be seen. Seen like ancient messengers. Seen like sacred codes. Seen like lost children at your door, holding the keys to your next becoming. But you don't open the door. You tell them to wait. You tell them you're busy being spiritual. You tell them you're too evolved to feel that much. So they wait. But they don't disappear. They start to build. A city, brick by brick, shaped by avoidance, designed by suppression. And one day, you wake up inside that city. Tall buildings of overcompensation, roads paved with silence, bridges built on rage pretending to be calm. A city that reflects everything you've refused to feel. Let me tell you a story. There was once a city, grand, impressive, clean. But no one could sleep. No one could rest. Because every night, the buildings moaned. The walls trembled. The windows whispered the names of emotions never spoken aloud. People called it haunted. But it wasn't ghosts. It was grief. Hundreds of years of grief. Baked into the bricks. Pressed into the sidewalks. Coded into the echo of every empty room. The city was built by trauma. And it wanted to be heard. This is what most of us are doing. Living in emotional architecture. built by children who were never allowed to cry. And we wonder why the floors keep cracking, why the ceiling drips with resentment, why our own lives feel unstable no matter how much we heal. It's not because something's wrong. It's because something has not been seen. Pause here. Feel your chest. Not with your hand. With your attention. Is it tight? Is it numb? Is it aching? Don't fix it. Don't analyze it. Just feel it. That pressure. It's not anxiety. It's an emotion that's tired of waiting. Now ask, what emotion am I pretending not to feel? Let it answer. Not in words. In sensation. It might come as heat, as nausea, as sudden tears, as nothing, that nothing. Don't be fooled. It is not absence. It is overload. Too much feeling. Locked behind too much thinking. Here's the lie. That emotions make you irrational. That feeling fully makes you weak. That sadness is for the broken. That anger is for the unevolved. Here's the truth. Unfelt emotion is the most destructive force on the planet. It builds wars. It builds abuse. It builds illusions of safety that cost you your own truth. Let's go deeper. You were taught to fear big feelings. So now you overthink. You analyze. You learn. You understand. But understanding is not integration. Knowing why you're sad is not the same as letting the sadness live. You can journal about the fire all day. It won't make you warm. You have to walk into it. You say you're stuck. You say life won't shift. But how could it? You're trying to build a new house while refusing to leave the one built on grief. You want a new relationship, but still live in the emotional ruins of the last one. You want purpose, but carry a warehouse of shame. You've labeled motivation. You want freedom, but you've never screamed your rage out loud. Without guilt. Let me say it without mercy. You are not overwhelmed by life. You are overwhelmed by the emotions you never gave permission to move. Your reality is choking on the backlog of feelings. You silenced to look functional, but functional is not alive. And if you're not alive, what exactly are you trying to manifest? Take another breath. Slower this time. Let it go down to your gut. And now, remember a moment when you felt something and immediately swallowed it. When you smiled instead of screamed. When you apologized instead of collapsed. When you understood instead of felt. Can you feel the architecture being built in that moment? The foundation of another invisible room in the city of your suppression. That's where your present is rooted. That's why you feel distant from your own life. You're not here. You're trapped inside emotional buildings you never meant to live in. But there is a way out. Not through logic. Not through productivity. not through pretending you've transcended pain. The way out is through the body, through the sound, through the shaking, through the surrender, through saying, I see you, I hear you. You get to exist even if I was taught you're too much. Here is your ritual. Find a space, private, safe, unstaged. Sit. No music, no candles, no distraction, and ask, what emotion am I not letting myself feel? Name 3. Only 3. Fear, grief, jealousy, shame, rage, loneliness. Whisper their names aloud, one by one, and to each one say, I see you. Then pause, breathe, then say again, you get to be here. Then just sit. Don't try to process. Don't try to transform. Just witness. Because witnessing is the first act of liberation. This is the truth. Your life isn't waiting for more effort. It's waiting for more emotion. Not managed. Not manipulated. Met. And once it is, the city begins to change. The walls soften. The buildings weep. The echo calms. And the architecture begins to breathe again. Chapter 5. Identity is the cage you forgot you built. You don't know who you are. And the deeper truth, you never did. Because who you think you are was not a discovery. It was a defense. Let me say it clearly. You are not the story you've rehearsed. You are the fear behind the story. Your identity. This thing you hold so sacred, so strong, so certain, isn't truth. It's architecture. Built under pressure. Forged under threat. Constructed, not revealed. And it worked. It protected you. It helped you survive. But now, it's killing your becoming. What if the you you've been clinging to is the very reason you feel trapped? Not because you're not enough, but because you've built your enoughness on a version of yourself that no longer needs to exist. You say, I'm strong. I'm reliable. I'm independent. I'm the one who always figures it out. I'm the good one. I'm the smart one. But who would you be? If you weren't trying to prove it, who would you be? If you weren't afraid of becoming someone else? Let me tell you a story. There once was a person locked in a cage, a golden cage, polished bars, engraved at the top with their name, in diamonds. The world praised them for how well they fit inside, how beautifully they decorated it, how efficiently they operated within it. They forgot it was a cage, until one day they saw it. The door, not locked, never was, just left open, invisible only because they never thought to check. And then came the question that tore them in half. If I step out, who am I without this name? This is the horror of awakening. You realize that your identity was your first wound dressed up as strength. You weren't born resilient. You had to become that. Because there was no space to be soft. You weren't born independent. You were taught no one would come for you. You weren't born the smart one. You learned that perfection was safer than presence. So when people say, "I just want to be myself," I ask, which self? The one that adapted, or the one that never got to emerge? Because most of us have never met ourselves. We've only met the mask that survived. And here's the lie: that your identity is fixed, that it's authentic, that it's who you really are. But authenticity is often just adaptation in costume. You learned to be what they needed. You learned to be what got you love. You learned to be what made you invisible to danger. And you called it you. Let me ask you something dangerous. What identity are you terrified of losing? What label? What role? And what would break if you no longer wore it? Would people still admire you? Would they still need you? Would they still know what to do with you? Would you? Because truthfully, your sense of self has become your limitation. You've turned your identity into a contract. One that says, "I will stay this version of me, so the world doesn't leave." But the world you're trying to belong to isn't even real. It's built on the agreement that no one changes, that everyone stays predictable, safe, comfortable, approved. But evolution is not comfortable. It's disorienting. It strips. It dissolves everything that once made sense. And it doesn't ask for permission. Take a breath into your gut, not your chest, your gut, and ask, who am I when I stop performing myself? Not in front of others, in front of your own reflection. Can you look in the mirror without introducing yourself to yourself? Can you sit in the silence and not default to your identity's defense system? Can you stand in the void without immediately grabbing for adjectives? Let's go further. You've been saying, "I'm just not that type of person. I've always been this way. This is who I am." But is it? Or is that the version of you who kept you safe when no one else would? Is it the version of you who got praised for disappearing at the right time? Is it the version of you who learned to be easy to love by making yourself smaller? You say you know yourself, but I don't believe you. Because if you truly knew yourself, you wouldn't cling to certainty so violently. You wouldn't be so scared of being wrong, of being different, of being undone. You wouldn't guard your self-image like it's your only proof of existence. You would let it die. And in that death, you'd finally breathe. Let's do the hard part now. right now. Take a piece of paper, or if you can't, close your eyes and speak it aloud. Write down 3 words you use to define yourself, not aspirational words, the ones that feel immovable. I'm a giver. I'm ambitious. I'm anxious. I'm reliable. I'm broken. I'm complicated. Write them. And now, imagine setting them on fire. Not symbolically, literally. Because each one is a chain made of memory. Each one is a prison dressed as personality. Each one was inherited, not chosen. Now ask, if I'm not these things, who am I? Let the silence answer. Don't rush to fill it. Let it ache. Let it terrify. Let it unmake you. Because the identity that trembles in silence is the one ready to be shed. You want to evolve and stop defending your definition. You want to transform. Then stop protecting the image. You want to meet your soul. Then stop announcing who you are and start listening to who you've never dared to be. Let me say it clearly for the ones in the back. You're not the identity that helped you survive. You are the consciousness that's ready to be reborn without it. And yes, that rebirth feels like death. Because the ego screams when its walls collapse. But you are not your ego. You are the fire that will burn the mask and dance in the ashes. Let's end here, not with comfort, with liberation. Your ritual. Write 3 words you've used to define yourself. Then, burn them. Watch them curl. Watch them blacken. Watch them disappear. And as they turn to smoke, say, I am not this name. I am not this shell. I am not this survival. Then sit in the quiet that follows and listen, not for a new label, not for a new performance, but for the sound of something ancient, finally unchained. That sound is the real you, returning. Chapter 6. Beliefs are programs, not proof. What you believe is not truth. It's code. And it's running you like a program, like background software you forgot was even installed. You call it my view, my values, my conviction. But what if those convictions weren't born from clarity, but from conditioning? Let's begin here, with a sentence no one wants to hear. Most of what you believe about life is someone else's defense mechanism, injected into your mind and renamed truth. That's not poetry. That's architecture. The architecture of a reality, built on silent agreements you never signed, but live inside every single day. Let me tell you a story. There was once a woman. She smiled always. People loved her for it. Such positive energy. She's always so strong. She's a light. But no one asked why she smiled so much. Because she didn't smile from joy. She smiled from programming. She learned that if she showed sadness, she would be ignored. If she showed anger, she would be punished. If she showed confusion, she would be replaced. So she smiled, until the smile became a belief. A belief that said, if I'm not pleasant, I'm not lovable. And the belief didn't stay in her face. It became her world. She built relationships where she had to stay small to be safe. She built a career where she was rewarded for never making waves. She built a self-image based on being the good one. But it was all a program, not a truth. This is what we do. We confuse repetition for reality. We confuse survival for self. We confuse programming for proof. And then we defend it. So let me ask you something disruptive. What belief are you most proud of? That you're a realist. That people can't be trusted. That life is hard. That love must be earned. That success requires sacrifice. Whatever your answer, that's where we begin. Because the beliefs you most strongly protect are often the ones most deeply protecting you. From what? From collapse. From change. From meeting the version of you that doesn't need that belief to exist. You say, but this belief has helped me. It's gotten me this far. Yes. So does scaffolding. Until it becomes a prison. The belief that got you through childhood is now keeping you from your next evolution. The belief that made you feel safe in chaos is now keeping you addicted to struggle. The belief that gave your pain meaning is now preventing your freedom. Let's say this without apology. A belief is just a thought. You kept rehearsing until your nervous system wrapped itself around it. And now every time someone questions it, your whole body reacts like it's under attack. Because the belief is no longer an idea, it's an identity. And to lose it feels like death. You are not here to be right. You are here to be free. And the cost of freedom is the willingness to let go of even your most sacred beliefs. Because sacred doesn't mean true. Sacred just means, I've had this so long, I forgot I was allowed to question it. Take a breath. Into your spine. Into the quiet part of you that knows this chapter isn't here to comfort, but to confront. Now ask, which belief in me is oldest, and who gave it to me? Was it your father, with his silence? Was it your mother, with her heartbreak? Was it the teacher, the preacher, the system? Was it your own younger self, just trying to survive the day? You think you believe what you believe because it's right. But what if you believe it because it once made pain bearable? Let's go further. Every belief runs a script, a loop, a pattern, and that loop plays out in your relationships, your work, your thoughts, your self-worth. So, if you believe that love must be earned, you'll never fully trust ease. If you believe that people will leave, you'll sabotage intimacy just to prove the exit. If you believe you are only worthy when achieving, you will never rest without guilt. Not because life made it that way, but because the belief demands a reality that keeps it alive. This is the part no one tells you. Your beliefs are alive, and they want to stay alive, even if it costs you your peace. They are not neutral. They are not passive. They are self-reinforcing algorithms. And the longer you run them, the harder it is to hear anything that threatens them. So you build echo chambers. You filter your feeds. You align with people who validate the belief. And you call that alignment. But it's not alignment. It's insulation. You think you're manifesting, but what you're really doing is curating a world that doesn't challenge your programming. And that world, it's a simulation, not reality. Because reality begins the moment you're willing to break the loop. Take another breath, not to ground, to interrupt. Interrupt the program. Let it glitch. Let it shiver. Let it scream. Let it reveal itself. Let it show you that you are not your beliefs. You are the space those beliefs have been living in. Here is the image I leave you with. A man stands in front of a wall. On the wall is a glowing QR code. He scans it. Nothing happens. He scans it again, and again, and again. Years pass. He becomes obsessed with the code. He studies it. He writes about it. He teaches others to scan it. But nothing opens. Until one day, someone asks him, "Have you ever checked your pocket?" And in his pocket is a key. Always was. He just never thought to stop scanning the wall long enough to reach for it. This is what beliefs do. They convince you that the answer is out there. Just one more scan, one more proof, one more repetition. But the truth was always closer, unspoken, untouched, waiting, in your hand, in your body, in the stillness beneath your certainty. So here's your ritual. Tonight, take a pen. Write down the 3 beliefs you've built your life on. Only 3. Now, for each one, ask, who benefits from me believing this? Be honest. Is it you? Or is it the version of you who needs the cage to feel real? Then, ask, who would I be if this belief was not true? Don't answer with logic. Sit with the vertigo. Sit with the silence. Then burn the paper. and whisper. I'm allowed to update the code. You are not your beliefs. You are the one who chooses which ones get to stay. And today, you remember that the key was never on the wall. It was always in you. Chapter 7. The universe responds to permission, not deserving. You've been waiting for what you think you deserve. That's why nothing's arrived. Because the universe doesn't respond to worth. It responds to permission. And most of what you call not yet is not divine timing. It's self-denial in disguise. Let's start here. I'm not ready. I haven't earned it. Maybe later when I'm more what? More healed, more humble, more punished. That voice, the one inside you, that keeps pushing everything away until you become some perfect, purified version of yourself. That voice isn't your soul. It's your fear, dressed in discipline, disguised as morality, wearing a halo made of guilt. Let me be blunt. The belief that you must deserve anything is the most elegant form of self-rejection. Because if you can convince yourself that you're not worthy, you'll never have to risk receiving. Receiving is terrifying. Because it means dropping the mask of effort. It means no longer hiding behind the struggle. It means saying, I'm allowed to have this, and I don't need to earn it through pain. And that breaks every spell you were taught. You don't actually fear failure. You fear allowance. Because if you allow beauty, abundance, love, ease, then you lose your favorite identity. The one who always has to work for it. The one who always tries so hard. The one who always earns everything with blood. That identity gives you control. It gives you a script. It gives you justification for your pain. But what if pain was never the currency of becoming? What if you've been worshiping effort when you were always meant to practice permission? Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who stood at the gates of paradise. They were open. No locks. No guards. Just there. He could see the garden. He could smell the light. He could taste the freedom. But he didn't walk in. Instead, he whispered, I should wait. I should become more pure, more grateful, more spiritual. And the gates stayed open, waiting. Centuries passed, and the man never walked in, because his belief in deserving was stronger than his ability to receive. This is you. You stand at the edge of everything you asked for. And instead of stepping forward, you start preparing. You tell yourself, I'll start the business when I feel confident. I'll love fully when I'm less broken. I'll show up when I've healed the wound. But confidence is built in the doing. Healing happens through the love. The wound closes after the leap, not before. So let me say it clearly. You are allowed to have what you haven't earned. You are allowed to receive what you don't feel ready for. Why? Because readiness is a lie. A loop. A spiritual way of saying, I'm still not good enough. But the soul doesn't need you to be good. The soul needs you to be open. Take a breath. Not to relax. To confront. Ask, what do I keep pushing away? Because I don't think I'm allowed to receive it. Let the answer come like a blade. Let it cut through the performance. Let it reveal where you've made suffering your sanctuary. You say you want abundance, but you're addicted to struggle. You say you want love, but you keep proving that you're not ready for it. You say you want impact, but you sabotage every opportunity so you can stay working on yourself. This isn't humility. This is self-erasure. It's hiding. You are hiding behind the belief that the universe is a scorekeeper. But the universe isn't watching your behavior. It's responding to your frequency. And your frequency is not based on your virtue. It's based on your permission field. How much good will you allow? How much ease will you let in before you feel the need to self-correct to earn it back? This is the real question. Not what do you want, but what do you feel safe receiving? Let me ask you a dangerous question. What feels too big for you to have? Write it down. Maybe it's wealth. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's being fully seen. Whatever it is, that's the ceiling of your reality. Not because it's unreachable, but because you keep lowering yourself to fit under it. And the ceiling doesn't move until you say, I give myself permission to live inside this version of me. Let's pause. Look around your life. What do you tolerate that you know is beneath your truth? What do you delay that you know wants to move through you now? What are you calling preparation? That's actually a sophisticated form of procrastination, because preparation without permission is just performance. And you weren't born to perform. You were born to open. Take another breath. And now say quietly, I allow. Say it again. Not as a chant, as a key. I allow love. I allow ease. I allow the thing I said I'd wait a lifetime for. And if your body trembles, good. That's the nervous system realizing you are not a prisoner anymore. Let's tell the truth. The universe is not waiting for you to become good. It's waiting for you to stop apologizing. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop apologizing for needing rest. Stop apologizing for dreaming out loud. You don't need a permission slip from God. You are the permission. Here is your ritual. Write down one thing, just one, that you've always believed was too big for you. A life, a love, a creation, a way of being. Then, underneath it, write, I no longer ask to be worthy. I give myself permission. Read it aloud. Once. then again, until the words feel less like hope and more like truth. And when you're done, don't wait. Take one action that reflects that permission. Not tomorrow. Now. Send the message. Book the flight. Make the ask. Say the yes, because this is the portal, and it only opens when you step toward it. The universe doesn't need you to deserve. It needs you to allow. It needs you to stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start declaring, "I'm not here to prove. I'm here to receive." And when you do, everything changes. Not because you earned it, but because you finally remembered. You were always the one holding the gate open. Chapter 8. Stillness is not peace. It is power. You've built your life on motion, plans, momentum. Momentum mistaken for meaning. But let me say something that will hurt, because it has to. Your movement is not expansion. It's escape. Escape from the ache of not knowing. Escape from the unbearable awareness that without your calendar, without your projects, without your performance, you don't know who you are. You're not busy. You are afraid. Afraid of the mirror that only appears when the water stops rippling. Afraid of the moment when there's nothing left to do and only one thing left to see: yourself. Not your goals. Not your identity. Not your story. Just the you that breathes behind all of it. You say you're exhausted. Of course you are. You're carrying 1,000 masks. You're dancing for a stage that never claps. You're trying to stay relevant in a performance you didn't even audition for. And what you call responsibility is just a script you inherited from a world that's terrified of rest. Let me say it clearly. Stillness is not avoidance. It's resistance to the addiction of performance. And rest isn't a break from life. It's what lets you remember. You were never separate from it. Now pause. Right now. Wherever you are. Stop. Stop mid-thought, mid-emotion, mid-breath. Don't reach for the next sentence. Just let the moment be naked. Don't fill it. Don't rescue it. Don't run. This is stillness. Not peace. Not numbness. Not floating bliss. But something much more powerful. The absence of distortion. The absence of trying. The raw, undressed presence of reality. Here's what happens in real stillness. Your false self begins to shake because it no longer has a role to play. It will scream. It will itch. It will distract. It will tell you that nothing's happening, that you're wasting time, that you should be productive. But don't listen. Stay. Not for answers. For annihilation. because that false self can't survive stillness. And that's what you've been afraid of all along. You say you want to awaken. Then stop praying for signs. Stop seeking messages. Stop asking the universe for more. Instead, be still enough for what's already here to be heard. Because the truth doesn't shout. It waits. And it waits for you to become quiet enough to hear what's been speaking through everything. Let's return to the warrior. He stood there naked. No armor. No script. He expected to feel weak. But he didn't. He felt weightless. He felt the breeze for the first time on his skin. He felt the ache in his joints. An ache he had ignored for decades. And then he heard a sound. Not from outside. From within. It was not a voice. Not a thought. It was a remembering. A thrum. A rhythm. Something older than language. Something more ancient than memory. And in that moment, he realized stillness wasn't the absence of battle. It was where the real war had always been happening. The war within. And finally, he had stopped fighting himself. Breathe now. But don't breathe like you always do. Breathe as if nothing needs to happen next. Breathe as if the whole world is allowed to exist without your intervention. Because it is. And that's where your true power lives. In what you're willing to let be. Somewhere inside you. There is a room that has never moved. Not once. Not when your name changed. Not when your beliefs evolved. Not when your heart broke. It was there. Before you learned how to speak. Before you were told what matters. Before you chose your mask. It has no windows. No furniture. No light. Just a pulse. Silent, but undeniable. This room is not a metaphor. It's your origin. It's your cathedral. It's where all false selves dissolve. And only one thing grants you access. Stillness. You see, stillness is not the reward. It is the weapon. It is the rebellion. It is what the world fears. Because it can't be manipulated. You can't sell it. You can't market it. You can't use it to prove anything. It's not impressive. It's sovereign. And that's why you've been avoiding it. Stillness reveals what you've buried. It brings the ache to the surface. The guilt you wrapped in busyness. The shame you disguised as kindness. The fear you swallowed and called discipline. Because only in silence do your shadows stop hiding. And only in stillness do you finally stop chasing a life that was never yours to begin with. Let's go further. Imagine this: a world where no one moved until they remembered who they were. No more reaction. No more proving. No more scramble for next. Just clarity, centeredness, deliberate creation. That world isn't a utopia. It's a possibility, but only if you choose it from within. Now come with me into the final threshold. Drop the concepts. Drop the metaphors. Drop even the need for transformation. Let's go naked. Let's go still. Let's return to that room inside you, not with a torch, but with closed eyes. No tools, no prayers, no technique, just presence. Because everything you've ever wanted begins in that unmoving center. Let's sit together in it now. I won't guide you. You don't need me there. You don't need anyone. You just need to not run. Close your eyes. Let the world be loud. Let the thoughts swirl. Let your discomfort grow teeth. Don't fight. Don't fix. Don't interpret. Just sit inside the roaring silence until it stops being noise and starts being truth. Ask one question, but ask it from the marrow, not from the mouth. What in me has never changed? Wait. Don't answer. Let it echo. Let it undo you. Let it become the place you return to from now on. Not when you're stressed. Not when you need peace. But as your baseline. Your home. Your source of creation. Because from here, from stillness, you don't fix reality. You build it. And now, the final ritual. Not as an act of healing. Not as a reward. But as a declaration of your return. Ritual of discovery. Find a space where no sound can reach you. Not music. Not your phone. Not your mind. Sit in absolute stillness for 30 minutes. No meditation. No goal. No mantra. Just watch. Watch the air move. Watch the space thicken. Watch the thoughts try to seduce you, and let them pass. Don't rescue them. Don't argue. Just remain. Still. Alive. Unyielding. Let the world run. Without your push. Let it move. So you can finally stop. And in that stopping, let the power return. Not to your hands, but to your presence. You don't have to deserve it. You just have to allow it. Chapter ends. No summary, no reflection, no bow. Only the sound of a silence that finally knows your name.